Thank you for joining Effortless Attraction. My name is Evelyn McAleer. I'm the author of A Life You Want, Effortless, and The Woman's Journey. I'm a life coach, business mentor, and inspirational speaker. And my greatest value is making a difference in people's lives. So I hope through these podcasts I can make a difference to your life.
Effortless Attraction Podcast is sponsored by Maria Young Wellbeing, wellness mentor and creator of Infusion, a platform designed to inspire health, wealth, abundance, and a life lived with purpose. Maria conducts events, trainings, and the blending of practical tools for lasting change. Her mission is simple: to help you live well and rise strong. You can explore more at www.mariayoungwellbeing.co.uk or infusion.mn.co.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on another Effortless Attraction podcast. Now, I always say I'm really excited to get interviewing or chatting with people, but today is extra special. Firstly, there's a 12-hour difference. She's coming in from New Zealand. I'm here in Spain. So it's great. Technology can make this all possible. I'm joined today by Nic Russell. Originally from Cranfield in County Down, Northern Irish by birth, but Kiwi by choice, and has lived in Auckland, New Zealand for nearly 30 years. Now, her life has been far from short on material. In 2005, she was being treated for breast cancer, while her 3-year-old daughter, Kenzie, was also in treatment. Kenzie died that same year. More happened: heart failure, a transplant, and then Parkinson's. And still, she's out there, cold water swimming, scuba diving, cycling. The outdoors has always been her thing, since cycling and hiking the Mourne Mountains in her teen. She is also the founder of Kenzie's Gift, a charity that is set up in her daughter's memory that now supports thousands of families across New Zealand dealing with serious illness or the death of a parent or sibling. And her first memoir, Bollocks, it's on its way. A founder, speaker, and author, and a general do-gooder. Nic Russell, you are most welcome today.
Well, thank you for having me, Evelyn. It's great to be here. What a lovely introduction.
I came across yourself on social media, and your video said, "I'm going to sum my life up in 30 seconds." You said you're from Northern Ireland, or the north of Ireland. You moved to New Zealand. You lived in a remote island. You had breast cancer. Your daughter died. You got divorced. You had to have a heart transplant. Then Parkinson's came in for the crack, and now you're writing your book or your memoir, Bollocks. And I remember it because I was thinking, holy smokes, life hasn't given this woman a chance, but here you are, smiling. Where would we like to start here, Nic?
Well, I think the reason I keep smiling is there was an incident when Kenzie was ill and she was only 3. And bear in mind, it's the perspective of a child is somewhat different from adults. They live in the immediacy where we're always looking to the future because, well, it's adults and we've got more responsibilities than children do. But it was the day I went for my own diagnosis of breast cancer, and Kenzie was still in the hospital, and her cancer took her ability to walk. So she was actually paralyzed, but she was a very active child. But the day I had to go out of the hospital and get my go for my tests, we had one of the nurses sat with her, and they were playing together, and they had the Play-Doh out in the bed, and she was having the crack. And I came back in after getting this diagnosis and going, for fuck's sake, could life be any worse? You know what I mean? How unfair, and having a right rant and really ticked off at the world. And I walked in, and there was Kenzie, and she was looking at me, and she was says, "Look, mummy, my cake," as if she was the winner of Bake Off. And it's like, here's this child who life took her ability to walk. She's in the hospital most of the time, and yet she's loving life. You know what I mean? And I thought, who's got it sorted? The 3-year-old had it more sorted than me because she loved it and she lived in the immediacy of it. And I think whenever Kenzie died, you know what I mean, it was the wonderment that she had at life, and she still wanted to enjoy it. She wanted to live it no matter how hard it was for her. And that's what I look at in my son, who's now 26. We live it in the sense of life is not poppy fields and roses. It is not fair. It's very hard. We all know that. We all sometimes look to Instagram and how people are living these wonderful lives. It's not real all the time. Life's not designed like that. But what it is designed to do is find those precious moments and hold on to them and enjoy it and search them out and live your life as best you can because it isn't easy. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it for a minute that it's easy, but it's finding those things in life that will help make every hard day that bit better and every beautiful day absolutely wonderful. And you hold on to those.
Do you know anybody else in life that's had it harder than you? Because it's still, I look in at your life. You buried a 3-year-old child. You're going through cancer and the treatment itself. Um, you had it was a divorce and then a heart transplant, and now you have Parkinson's as well. And I'm all about positivity and spreading joy and being inspirational to people. But I have to say, this is why I've been so looking forward to speaking to you. Because is that what it takes? Remembering those memories or holding on to that. This is how precious life is.
I think, I think, I mean, I'm from lived experience, and I mean, I have to admit, I mean, I've had lots of really good friends down here. I've got a wonderful son, a wonderful family back at home, and my brother's in Sydney. And I think it's, we're all different. And I think for me, what keeps me going is being out in nature. Like every morning, I live beside the beach here. I'm very fortunate to live beside a beautiful beach. I get up every morning and I go for my morning swim, and then there'll be beautiful sunrises, sometimes a little bit stormy. Every day is different. And it's that connection with people. And like last week, my beautiful dog died. He was 15, and he was my lovely companion for 15 years. Now that's been a hard week. But again, my friends rallied. Every day they were around just to, we'll go for a walk, we'd go for a coffee, and between me doing work, we went to the beach at the weekend. And it's all those things. And I know he was pet family and not the same as the death of Kenzie, but still it was a death and a grief. And it was those things that your friends around you and they're genuine and authentic and they don't ghost you. You all this time over the years, what I've found is genuine, authentic friends. The frivolity doesn't matter. We've nurtured the ones that have counted and pruned the ones that don't. And it's and some people will be in your life for a lifetime, as they say, and some for a reason, some for a season. And sometimes I haven't seen some of my friends for a long time. And then something happens and they're there. And I think we're all like that. We've got busy lives. And I think for me, it is just a thing. If I didn't live my life as best I can and adapt the way my body enables me to adapt, it wouldn't be worth living. And it would be to dishonor her legacy because she strove to be alive and enjoy her life, that she only got 3 years, and for some reason I keep getting longer. You know what I mean? Even with a malfunctioning body, there's been a lot invested in me in modern science. The gift of modern science has kept me alive and it's enabled me to see my son grow up. So I look to those things. But I admit, Evelyn, like days are hard. Like last week, I had a couple of really hard days with Billy not being here. He was named after Billy Connolly because he made us laugh. Um, you worry about jobs, you worry about finances, you still have all those life worries that everybody else has. And I recognize them, I acknowledge them, I roll with them. And I acknowledge, with Parkinson's, you have harder days than others, but that too shall pass. But you hold on, you find those things when it's a hard day to get you through the day. And as I said, if it's a friend sitting at the sunrise, going for a swim or doing something that will just ground you, you calm your mind down and just get you through that day. And hopefully it will pass, and they do pass. The hard times do pass. But if we all had beautiful times, you wouldn't recognize beautiful times if there's no hard times. You
Yeah.
know, so that cliche as it is.
I see your videos. I see you heading off on the bike down to the town to get your bloods done. You're out swimming there with your friends, and it looks like a lovely lifestyle over there. You weren't that far from the coast anyway when you lived in County Down.
No, I mean, and that's the thing. My love of nature really stemmed from Ireland because I lived on the shores of Carlingford Lough, and we had the Mourne Mountains, and it was often up the Mourne Mountains hiking and cycling. My love of cycling started there, and I've never cycled any place as lovely as home, to be honest with you, because the cycling in New Zealand's a bit treacherous. They're not exactly cyclist loving, and they're bigger roads with big tractor trains on them, as they call them here, and so. I think Ireland can be anti-cyclists and stuff when they get stuck behind a cyclist, but I think they used to get stuck behind sheep and cows at times. So I think when they get stuck behind a cyclist, they've a bit more patience. And but the nicer thing about New Zealand is, I suppose, the climate's slightly better up here than it is in Ireland. My love of the ocean did stem from being grown up in Ireland, and nature and the power of it really to calm my mind was something that I learned right early on, and it's carried me through life really.
When you went over to New Zealand, did I hear correctly? Were you a scuba drive or
I'm an instructor, yes, I was.
instructor?
Yeah, I learned to dive in Carningford Loch, so it was a bit hard, eh? Because when you dive in Carningford Loch and then you come to New Zealand waters, it's a bit nicer. There's more fish to see, and yeah, I did that for a couple of years before I got married. Of course, when the children came along, that put pay to instructing, but it was such a wonderful lifestyle. I was nannying and teaching diving at the time, so um, but I just love the outdoors and being under the water again. There's no noise down there. It's just you and your breathing, and it's quite meditative. It's meditation in action, I think. And being around the marine life and their behaviors, like all the different fish, different behaviors, and it's I just found it fascinating, and I still do. I wasn't able to dive for 10 years when I was in heart failure, but once I got the transplant, I went to see the dive doctor here in Devonport, and so I said, I could do, just recreational diving no deeper than 20 meters in calm waters, summer conditions for the diving. And, he said, like, and with the Parkinson's as well. So I said, so it's always conservative diving, but the fact that I could get back in the water and do something I couldn't do for 10 years was amazing. And my
Mm,
brother has come over from Sydney and we've dived and we've been able to dive with Connor. Um, and so it's been quite amazing actually to share that as a family again. So that's been a gift that we've had
absolutely.
since the transplant. Yeah.
Well, tell me about this heart failure. Like, when did that take place or happen?
So it it happened when I was 40. So when I got diagnosed with cancer at 31, and so I had I had bilateral mastectomy, I had both my boobs off, and one prophylactically, one because it was stage 3, it was aggressive breast cancer. So and then I had my ovaries out as well. So I had the whole shit and shaboodle done along with the chemo and immunotherapy and the radio. And but in that period of time, they always monitor your heart. So they picked up that I had a slight malformation in my heart, um, and it was a precursor to hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which runs in our family. My father had it, and it runs in my father's strain. He died from it about 8 years ago now. And but most people do live a normal life like, with some of their activities curtailed, really. So I was, after Kenzie died, I got back into doing my ocean water swimming and started doing marathons and triathlons and stuff and adventure races. And I was training for an arm distance event. And the training wasn't going great. And I thought, I mean, and when I got to the start line of the race, I just flailed. I just thought not, just something in me was going, I'm just not ready for this. 3 months later, I went in for my annual checkup because they always monitored my heart, and lo and behold, my heart function, my ejection fraction, as they call it, which is how much blood they pump, your heart chamber pumps out, was down to 40%. So it usually is around 60 to 70. Mine was at 40. So at that point in time, they had to put me on medication to preserve the heart function. So that started at 40. And over the next sort of 9 years, it sort of was steady. It stayed sort of along those lines. And so while I could no longer do the big events I did, I was walking and I was swimming with fins on, and I changed to an electric bike then as opposed to the road bike. So I adapted what my body could do because I was not going to give up me exercising because it's just been part of my life and my coping mechanism of dealing with life stressors. And then about 9 years later, I was at a work event, hosting a work event down at one of the big agricultural shows down here because I've got a couple of contracts that I run. And I couldn't literally walk around the block, that square block. I was really out of breath. And I'd been to my cardiologist 6 months prior. The heart function was still holding fine. So went into him and said about the symptoms and I was really struggling. And he did another MRI. My heart function had dropped by another 10%. It was functioning about 26%. And he said, Nick, we're going to have to look at a transplant. Now, we don't know why it just dropped. It just went. And so I got accepted onto the list, and I was on the list for about 10 months when the call came through for a heart. And it was brutal, I have to say. It was cancer was one thing, the heart transplant was another. I have to admit, it was um I'm very grateful to the family in their darkest hour, whoever this donor family was, that they give me that gift. I mean, it was very hard, question for them to deal with and to give up their organs of the, because it was a young person that died. That's all I know. And so in their darkest moment, they give me the gift of life, which was very generous of them. And if, again, so that sort of compounds where I'm at with Kenzie. I carry the grief of a dead child, so I know what this family's going through with the grief of a dead child, dead partner, someone that was very much loved, and to give me the gift of life. So therefore, again, it sort of compounds that thing. Well, somebody has given me the gift of life, and to remember that again, to live my life as best I can in honor of both of those, that lovely family and my daughter. So yeah. So but again, it's modern science for you. It's my friend that she works in pediatric cardiology down in Dublin, and she said, Nick, it's plumbing. You know what I mean? It's 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 afterwards. It's the medication. If it wasn't for the drugs, we would be dead, because that's what keeps you alive after the heart transplant, because your body does want to reject it, and those drugs have improved over time. So that's really what keeps you alive after a heart transplant. The transplant itself, as I
Jeez,
said.
you know what they say about people being through the war. So here you are as the woman having all removed, as such as
Yeah.
they see the feminine, and as you say, thankfully, then waiting on a list that it's waiting. And isn't it enough that you're waiting on the heart transplant and knowing that someone has to pass in order for you to receive the gift of life again, Nick? So, I mean, I find it fascinating. And it's not, I find you fascinating, the woman that you are and everything that you've come through. Did you then set up, because this campaign, the Herceptin,
Yeah.
was a drug that women had for cancer in New Zealand, but you were only given it for a certain period of time. Was your campaign then to bring it out for 12 months?
Well, I mean, I was involved. It wasn't just me. There was quite a few women involved. I mean, what happened with the Herceptin was one of the new cancer drugs at the time. So we're going back 20 years now. And it's one of the first immunotherapy drugs that came out on a global scale. So it wasn't just here in New Zealand, it was in the UK as well. And globally, different patient groups were asking for this throughout the world, to get access to this new drug, because they knew it was opening up a new frontier in cancer treatment, which it has done. There's many, many more drugs that have come out now, which are fantastic at helping, if not with just survival, but longevity for lots of people. They're living a lot longer now with cancer, which means it's not cancer for many people is no longer an imminent death sentence. I mean, it's unpredictable still, but these drugs are a big advance. And so that was one of the first ones. So because Kenzie had just died, and where I live at, it was my actual my neighbor actually took one of the news stories about me and Kenzie into, she worked at TVNZ, and then they wanted to interview me because her
That's
septum was,
a TV
yeah,
channel.
yeah. So it was the main TV channel here. It was their main current affairs program after the news. And so they called me, asked would I do an interview, and I suppose it was the patient story which was going behind, which emphasized what was going on already, the discourse that was happening, publicly about this drug. And so I suppose it was my story. We fronted that we were the patient story that fronted it. And I worked with amazing women, a group of very talented women. We had, lawyers, scientists, judges, all of it. So we were all working together to get access to that drug. Um, People here fundraised for me to get it, because we knew, by lobbying it could take a number of years before government would fund it. And it took government 3 years here to fund it, and they funded a shorter course. They funded the full course, and but people were trying to maybe just, there was talk of a 9-week course, but that never flew at all. I mean, I think what people understood, and the pharma buying agencies here understood, it was going to open a door to, their budgets were going to have to get bigger, because these drugs were not cheap, and the immunotherapy drugs have not been cheap. They are an investment, but the return they get is people living a lot longer and still being productive, and living a longer life and being part of society, and all those wonderful things that come along with that, when your quality of life and your health is much better thanks to these
Mm.
drugs. So yeah, I was part of that.
When I saw of you, I thought there's a woman. I tell you what, there's plenty of fight in her and driving it because you're definitely out doing your bit for it. And you sent a message the other day. Where were you heading for St. Patrick's Day? To
I was
Parliament?
down to Parliament. We're having well, the Irish community here is really good, so we're having a luncheon, St. Patrick's Day luncheon down in Parliament, and it happens every year. It's yeah, the Irish community here is really strong, and those business networks and all of those things. So it's yeah, it was lovely. Yeah.
Mm. Well, fair play. And do you know what I have noticed? And I'm quite sure the listeners will pick up. You haven't lost a bit of your Irish accent at all for being away 30 years. Listen, there's somebody could go away a weekend to London and they're coming back, yay, or America. You haven't lost it.
Well, I think the Irish accent is, especially the Northern Irish one, even more so. It's a very distinguished accent, recognizable one, and I think I'm proud of where I come from. I wouldn't want to lose it. I've had to tone it down. I do speak quite quick. I have a habit of going off on a tangent, as the Northern Irish do when we're storytelling. Pardon me, and trying to get me back on topic can sometimes be difficult. Um, but I mean, I wouldn't want to lose it, and it's yeah, it's part of who we are. It's our identity, isn't it? So
Yeah,
yeah.
you'd hold on to it. So, with all of this, and you had your heart transplant then, and when did Parkinson's then set in for you, Nick?
Well, again, it's a weird one, Parkinson's, because you tend to have symptoms for quite a number of years before you get diagnosed. So I was diagnosed at 49. Was it 49 when I got diagnosed? Um, hold on a
So you
moment.
weren't that long over the whole heart transplant thing.
Parkinson's came first, and then the heart transplant came second. Because I had the heart transplant in 3.5 years ago. So I had it in September 2022. The Parkinson's I was diagnosed in 2019. It was before the pandemic. And I had symptoms for it's about 7 years. So with Parkinson's, you might start off with, I mean, mine started off with like a frozen shoulder, swimmer's shoulder, which, we put down to that. Then I was getting, then I was having difficulty swallowing. I was choking quite a bit. Then my hands weren't working. I went off and had carpal tunnel surgery for that. I had investigations on my swallow. Urge incontinence. So you'd start to weigh yourself and you think, well, is this a menopausal thing that's happening along having babies and stuff? Um, Sleep was bad. You know what I mean? Then my face was quite masking, they call it. So you didn't know if it was sad or mad. So people go to me, Nick, are you all right? And going, what are you frowning for? And I'm going, am I? But at the time, looking back at photographs of me, then you can see it, but it's like I couldn't see it. And then my tremor was getting quite bad. I had a right leg tremor, and then my arms started, the tremor started there as well. And it was my oncologist picked it up. I was going in for a check with him, and he just said, Nick, it's Parkinson's. And that was after 7 years of symptoms just building up. And as soon as we started the Cinemet, the dopamine replacement therapy, it was like night and day. It was so when you have periods when you're on, when I'm completely on, when the drugs are working, you couldn't tell. When they start wearing off, you can tell. And some days you're on more than you're off, and some days you're off more than you're on. And but yeah, it's give me my sort of me back, but that's the thing with the Parkinson's, it's degenerative and that will, over time, but it's a slow moving beast. But again, it's my body keeps taking things from me, but as it keeps taking, I keep changing, you know what I mean? So I just, like now I can swim about 500 meters in the sea. Well, at some point, if I can only end up bobbing in the sea, that's fine. You know what I mean? It's at some point I'll not be able to dive anymore, but if I can still dive now, and that time may not be that far away where I can't dive, but I've been able to take advantage of a few years diving. But you take off what I can do now and it's deal with that whenever it comes down the pipeline.
You're making my eyes wet. I'm looking, and an all round do-gooder you are too. And do this in memory of me springs to mind. Kenzie's gift, the charity that you set up, because you'd realize that, whenever Kenzie had passed away, that your son, because he was a few years older than her at the time, and how do children deal with the passing of the death, and there wasn't that about to help children. if I'm correct in saying that,
Yeah,
Nick.
you're correct. What we found was there was nothing at the time that, helped kids deal with the death of their parent or sibling. So whenever Kenzie was alive, we had wonderful support within the health system, right? You know what I mean? And it was great. No, and even, for siblings, it would be sibling days and things like that, which was really quite lovely. But Kenzie, she had the audacity to die at Christmas. So of course, even in the hospital when she got sick, because she ended up getting an infection, so it was sepsis that she got, and because she had no immune system, and it was over in a week. So, but I was the one, because I was a hospital play specialist in my early career, right, when I'd worked in the UK and stuff. So, um, and here. So whenever she went into pediatric intensive care and she was on the life support machines, I was taking photographs of the machines before Connor came in, and then sitting him down outside the thing and explaining to him like how Kenzie's body was really struggling at the minute, and these machines were helping her body rest so she could hopefully try and get better. I was prepping him for that. Then, whenever the day came, whenever she was dying, he was in there with us, so he was part of that process of being able to process with it. And he got to sit with us whenever Mackenzie was taking off the machines and sitting with me so he could be there and all part of it. But that was us preparing him for that. And then after she died, I mean, when we brought her home, we did the Irish thing, we brought her home, but we opened the coffin and took her out so he could see what she was like before and what she was like after, and what a dead body was like, and be able to process those things in ways that he could understand and in language that he could understand. I use the analogy for a 5-year-old that your body is like a car. You know what I mean? They said, some cars keep going and going forever, Connor. Some cars get crashed and they get fixed, the mechanic fixes them. And some people just get a lemon. It just will not, no matter what you do with it, it just will not work. I said, Kenzie got a lemon. You know what I mean? Her body just wouldn't work for her. So it's and that's how I explained it to him. And as he got older, I was able to talk more and more to him. But I had the skills to do it because I'd worked in that area to a degree. And I mean, I was fortunate enough. I had a wonderful psychotherapist who had stepped up for me, Maxine Bergen Page, and she was a godsend. She kept me on track and helped me through it all. It was amazing. And she's very like me, very much a straight shooter, no bullshit. Not all airy fairy. She's very much a practical woman, and you could rant away with Max, and she was fantastic. Loved her dearly. And but again, there was nothing for the kids. And I'd seen other families go through what we were going through because we met many families in Starship and Kenzie's Hill, and also myself, and met many women, for about 3 or 4 years, you were nearly at a funeral every other week because we were in that space, and it's the space you're in, it's oncology, and it's cruel, and people die and their lives are cut way too short, and they wanted to live a long life and they didn't get it. So that's what boils down to again. They didn't get a long life, you know what I mean? And we for some reason are getting it. And so we went about, met with other organisations here, and we spoke about what was and what wasn't offered. So that's why we set up Kenzie's Gift. And I think the community in New Zealand have been exceptionally kind to me, as were people from home. And I think this is my way of giving back to them in recognition of that. And I think, when kindness is shown to you, I think what keeps humanity going is if you pay it back. It doesn't have to be like I did setting up a charity, but even like my friends have said this week when Billy died, the dog died, it's coming around and sitting and being and taking someone out for a walk. It's bringing a meal, it's taking someone out for a coffee, and it's all those things, and being able to let people give them the strength to carry them through, and get them through. And so with the children we work with now, the referrals we get in, it's everything from, it can be from a sudden death, it can be from a suicide, it can be from a murder, it can be from terminal illness. It's these are very sad, tragic stories that will forever change a family, and it does. It changes you for every year. There's the before and there's the after. But what we want to do is help the kids with this, is process that grief and give them hopefully the tools, is an overused word, I know, but it's the ability to live a functioning full life, and they can have happiness and joy and all those things in life and be strong, resilient, wonderful members of society, and not to wreck their futures, you know what I mean? So it's a gift we want to give them back. And if we can, that's what we want to do. And and we've got a wonderful team of people. I had the idea, but I needed a skilled team to be able to deliver that. And we've got wonderful therapists around the
Isn't that the
country who,
wonderful thing? We just had a brief thing, and we're just saying about to put it out to the universe. So, How
Yeah,
did I find you? I says, I always put out to the universe,
yeah,
send me someone. But when you had that idea of creating something, I want to do something to give back here, um, that all these people then paths cross in order to make it happen.
yeah. It was and I think, people understand it. It's grief is something people don't talk about in death. We don't use the D word, we will use passed away or lost. It's like they've died. You know what I mean? And we've eradicated that language out of society, so people are now fearful of it. And it's like, whenever I was on the transplant list, so if we take Connor for an example, it's seen his sister die, and then I was on a transplant list, so he knew what, we didn't know what way that was going to go. We had very open conversations about death, and like I planned my funeral. I had it all set up and paid for. I had everything set up for Connor because if the worst happened, I didn't want a 21-year-old having to be worrying about it. It was all taken care of for him. And and I think when you talk about things, it's the only thing you've got in your control. It's like, what do I want my death to be like? What do I want my funeral to be like? You know what I mean? What do I want? These are choices I can have, and then it's not as fearful. You know what I
Mm.
mean? It's actually I can understand people being scared of it, but we all know we've got an infinite amount of time. And if we lived forever, nothing, again, it goes back to that thing. If we live forever, what would be special? It just,
And
it
it's
doesn't matter.
that this bit in between this journey or this, this bit, but you've had so much that is, as you say, not short on material. And with all of this material, there's going to be a memoir called Bollocks. And that's just when you said it that day in the video. And I am writing a book, or my memoir is called Bollocks.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Well, yeah, I think because I've had, like, I found here particularly, it's because I don't fit into any one peg. So if somebody has breast cancer, there's patient support groups for them. Pardon me. You've got patient support groups for everything. Now, I'm not a group person, right? It's not the way I fly. It's I like dark humor. I'm Northern Irish. I like Billy Connolly got me through some really tough nights after Kenzie died. When the tears wouldn't stop, was Billy Connolly went on. Um, and bless him, I've still got Billy's DVDs, and we've got other good stand-ups that I like. And that's why I thought when I wrote the memoir, it was about it's showing and not telling. It's showing my life. It covers back in Ireland and some funny events. I mean, where it's not funny and you can't lighten it up. The bit which is hard to read, of course, is when Kenzie dies. I mean, what I brought her and Connor very much to life on the page. I mean, it's very vivid. It's that childhood, the sibling stuff and the funny things and families that you get with siblings. And the bit when she dies, I mean, that's a hard read. There's no sugarcoating that bit of the book. That is a hard read for people. And but then there's the funny sides as well, and dealing with those funny things. And I think that keeps you going. And I think in life that I wouldn't change anything in my life as much as I wish that, I had Kenzie forever. But it's yeah, I wouldn't change anything. The people that I've met, where I've been to, what I've experienced. It's yeah, I mean, I've loved my life. It's been an interesting life, if nothing else.
It certainly has.
I I would love to win the lotto and you know what I mean and have financial security from here to, I mean, I think as we all wish that, but it's but in the interim we just keep going, and we enjoy you know
Well, the line that people would say, and no better woman to say it, to tell me if you feel this is right or not, you're on about winning the lottery. People say your health is your wealth. Would you concur with that?
well, I was actually talking about this last night, and it's like, well, when you don't have any money, it's not easy either. So it's like, so I think the thing with your health is the reality of it is with when you are living with a malfunctioning body, it is harder. You know what I mean? Because I mean, I've been able to work for myself, and it's and I would be able to always work with two or three contracts. So that gives me the ability to work from home, work to my schedule. If I've got medical appointments and stuff, I'm always delivering. My productivity is great. So It's I don't need to be micromanaged, and be in an office to be shown a micromanaging or have my keystrokes tapped in. I'll deliver projects and deliver successful projects. But it's enabled me to work but if you're in a normal corporate job, I wouldn't be, you know what I mean? And that's the reality of it. You couldn't, you'd be sacked, you know what I mean? If they want you in there 9 to 5, it's just not going to work. And that is the thing when people are living with serious health, they're usually not as well off long term. They're your pension and security long term. I am on my own, so it's the ability to have Julie, all those things. It's so the reality of it is there is a huge impact, and that's something I do live with. It's something I do worry about, and then I stick my head in the sand and I just keep going. And so while they say your health is your wealth, well, yes, it is. If you've got a perfectly healthy body and you don't have to worry about, how when you don't have a perfectly healthy body, how it impacts your life long term, and it's your ability to have the security that your peers or others do. Yeah, but I have been able to make it work for me. I'm not unemployed. I have been able to continuously work through um um my treatments. I didn't work the time Kenzie was sick and stuff. And but I finished off my degree and my postgrad degree, just after Kenzie died. So that opened up my, you know, working opportunities. Again, I adapted to what, I could do really and made it work for me as best I can. So I've been able
Brilliant.
to.
Did you ever find love again? So I know I'll not delve too deep, but just when you said I'm on my own, I thought, "Oh." I know you got divorced. Was that
I
after
think
Kenzie?
no, and that the reason being I didn't want at that time Connor was young and I didn't want a blended family. I was not interested in taking on that dynamic and the complications that come with it, to be honest. I didn't want different men coming in and out of Connor's life. He was my priority and building my life back. And to be honest, I am quite self-sufficient and quite stubborn and I like my life the way it is. So um I mean, now that Connor has left, flown the nest and stuff, there's maybe room for that to happen. But it's at the but I just haven't met that someone. And I suppose I mean I'm not going to do the swipe. It's like I'm not interested. You know what I mean? I've no. It's where I put my energy. So if something miraculously happens, that'll
There
be
you
lovely.
go. You
But if
never
it doesn't,
know whose path
yeah, you just
might
don't
bring.
know. And if it's not my life story, it's not my life story, and that's okay too.
Exactly. Oh, you're brilliant. And like you're absolutely brilliant. But on the in the description here, wherever people are listening to, if it's in Spotify or Apple or YouTube, I'm going to put your links in because for your social media and when this book of your memoir is coming out, so people can get a copy of it as well. I have to say, I have to say, you are the most inspirational person that I have spoken to. I've spoken to a lot of people, and
Oh,
people
thank
do
you, Alex.
inspire me. But you blew me away with that 30-second. I'm going to share my life with you in 30 seconds. But the way you delivered it, it wasn't woes me, look at my life. I was like, she's smiling. You
Yeah,
she's and that's what captured my attention. And I think for anybody listening to this, Nick, I'll tell you what, if they're looking, you turn to Billy Connolly to lift you up. You'd be the woman I'd be going, where's that woman? Because I seen her heading down the other day in the town to get your bloods done and then popped in for a wee cake. Shouldn't have been taking the cake because you forgot your tablets and the tremors had started.
I don't, and I've done that many times. Like, oh no, sweet. I did it over the weekend again. As I was staring at the beach, I forgot to because I don't expect to be as aware as long as I do. And then and then it's like sitting having a donut. The transplant team had a stroke.
And you have a wonderful sense of humor. Nick, listen, I could talk for ages, but I'm going to put the link. I want to put the connection for yourself, your links on Instagram and Kenzie's gift
Oh,
also
thank you.
there and share them. Ladies and gentlemen, whenever you get an opportunity to listen to us, do follow this lady. I would imagine for any other podcast shows out there or newspapers or TV, you're fabulous, Nick. You're
Oh,
absolutely
thank you, Evelyn.
amazing. And, thank you for, I have to say, thank you for everything that you've been through to be able to share it and your inspiration. And as you say, yeah, there's great days and there's not so great days, but it's finding those moments and how you appreciate friends, support, and you also give that in abundance yourself. Um, if the world was filled with Nicks, I think we'd have a damn decent place. And plenty of ones that would soon tell you what they think as well.
Absolutely. I think the friends keep us real. And I said to my friend, it's like your friends are like an orchestra. You know, I mean, they're made up of different, and you can't expect one friend to do it all. I've got my friends who are the practical ones who do not go to them for emotional support and boo. Who, you know, they'll come around and they'll fix your house, they'll fix something. There's also they'll make you a lovely meal. It's those that will just be the distractors and the humorous ones who will say the the darkest of humor. And it's like, so you know who to pick. So you can't expect one friend to be it all, and don't get frustrated at them if somebody's dropped you down the made you the worst meal ever. Don't go to that person. You tap into the ones who into the strengths and their talents, and it's they'll get you through.
Well, Nic, thank you so much for your time today. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you as always for tuning in to Effortless Attraction Podcast. And be sure to follow Nic if you're looking a wee dose of inspiration. Thank you, Nic.
Thank you, Evelyn. See you, everyone. Thank you so much.
You can support the show on Spotify for just £1.99 a month. You'll unlock exclusive episodes, and your support helps keep these conversations going. The link is in the description. Thank you.